Hi everyone, today we talk about FinOps, what it is and why it's important, and even how we as engineers can prevent from the company spending a fortune on cloud costs. My guest has been a real frontrunner on this topic over at Oblivion, Michel Zitman. Don't forget to like and subscribe when you're on YouTube and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Enjoy!
Welcome to Beyond Coding, a dive into the world of successful people in IT. From your sponsors, Zebia, creating digital leaders. Here's your host, Patrick Akil.
Hey Michel, how's it going?
Hey, great. Great to be here, Patrick.
Yeah, happy to have you. So we invited you on to talk about FinOps.
Yes.
Right? It's kind of a new kid on the block and it's an up and coming topic, which
Indeed.
is gaining more traction and is becoming a real important pillar kind of cloud development. But let's start off with more of a personal question of why are you passionate about FinOps in the first place?
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. I think took me time to figure that out too.
Yeah.
And definitely passionate about it. I think it's a bit crazy. But when I really look back at why I got passionate about cloud in the first place, I can really identify that. And, well, I really am passionate about technology, more even about what technology enables, right? I think just as really going really back, like electricity changed how we live, I think in a broader sense, technology does that, right?
Yeah.
So electricity, we can see that as a sort of technology.
Yeah.
And then nowadays, what I saw back in 2013 was that cloud was the next big revolutionary technology that could have this impact.
Yeah.
That was when I realized that, okay, it was around way before.
Yeah.
And I decided I wanted to go along with this. And when I think why is that, is cloud really has this power to really democratize technology on a really next level. And bring this to FinOps, when I really started learning about cloud and getting knowledge, and I wanted to get better and better at this. It wasn't even a thing. FinOps wasn't a term conceived. This is kind of recent, or cloud financial management, or even cost optimization. But it kind of landed on me to do this. When I joined Oblivion, and I started to get a lot of energy out of doing this. And the reason is that basically what you're doing is making cloud more efficient. So if I look at that and I see, okay, cloud is an enablement tool, right? It democratizes technology. And what I'm trying to do with FinOps is to make it even more efficient. So I'm making it easier to democratize technology. And this is what I think why I get so much energy out of doing that, and why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah, it's really just enabling people. First of all, cloud enables a lot of aspects, right? It's revolutionary in the fact that developers have a lot more tools in their hands now.
Yeah, I think it democratizes technology. It's the very best way to define what it does. It democratizes technology. In the past, if somebody wanted to try something, they would have to buy a machine. And maybe you wouldn't be able to do that. Some people in a lifetime. Or get it approved in a company. And nowadays, it's so cheap to try and experiment, right? Everybody, basically with internet connection and a computer, it doesn't have to be yours. But you just need to have access to that. And then you have access to a plethora of infrastructure and software and anything that you possibly need to build on a virtual level.
There's so many options out there now. That's probably where the difficulty comes in as well. We had some guys over from Bol.com in a previous episode, and they shared how their cloud journey was going. And one of the things that they mentioned and really stuck with me is that they couldn't copy what they had as physical hardware, for example, one-on-one to the cloud, because that would not have been beneficial to them, right? They would still have the same pain points. So they really learned to leverage the cloud, go cloud native in some aspects, and really use it in that way, right? But they also mentioned that there's so many options in kind of figuring how things work and what's the most effective way of doing it, also cost-wise. Is that then kind of where that FinOps term came in?
Yeah.
Or what is FinOps in your terms as well?
If I have to define FinOps or cloud financial management, it's knowledge domain. In my opinion, it's not something that it's a specific thing that you do. No, it's knowledge domain.
Yeah.
And it's something that arises out of this need to cope with this dynamic and distributed nature of the cloud, but not the cloud itself, but the economic model of the cloud.
Yeah.
It's really, really different than the traditional IT that most organizations would leverage in the past. Yeah. That was financial-wise, accounting-wise, a lot easier to manage than the economics in the cloud.
Exactly, because it's how it was previously is an initial cost, right? You invest in something that it's a depreciating asset.
Yeah, it's what we call the Capex model, right?
Exactly.
Capital expenditure, that you buy something, then you have that asset, and then that asset has a life, right? Time, and this it depreciates throughout that lifetime. Yeah. And then you say, okay, I bought this. It's $1,000. It's good for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, depending on how your taxation goes, whatever country you are. Yeah. But you have a fixed asset. You know how it works out. You know when it's going to be fiscally speaking worth nothing. Yeah. And then you know that you're going to buy another one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the whole cycle starts again.
An upgraded version, slightly more expensive or cheaper if the technology got cheaper to build that. Yeah. But you're going to buy another one.
Exactly.
And then you have your capacity back. And then it starts appreciating, and there you go. Yeah. The cycle starts, and then you track assets, right? So all days you would have those metal labels stick to every piece of hardware that you would have. Yeah, and it was sort of easy, right? So you get, okay, I want to buy networking equipment, right? So you bought 12 new switches. Yeah, then you have all the switches. Every single one of them has a serial number. Yeah. Then you put that on a database, whatever you're using to track that. Yeah. And then you use it. Sort of easy to calculate, and each switch is capable of I don't know how many connections. Yeah. But it's a fixed number, so you know the more devices you need to connect, the more switches you will need, and so on. So it's kind of predictable, foreseeable. It's easy to forecast, right? It's easy to budget how much you're going to need. So
now it's with the cloud, it's the same, except you're not the one that's doing it, right? You're using it as a service and you're paying as you go.
Exactly. Yeah. So it changed from this Capex model to OpEx, right? To operational expenditure. And not only you use that as a service, but you don't need to worry anymore about those the numbers and this is from one point of view it's great. From the user point of view, right? I don't need to worry about that anymore. Exactly. I don't need to worry if whatever I'm trying to build is going to work out. Because if it doesn't, I just shut it down and I don't have to pay anymore for it. I don't need to make an investment. I don't need to convince people to put money on something. And if it doesn't work, I'm at risk. My career is at risk, or I don't know, something. This whole project or initiative is at risk. You can just start over and try again for a few cents or a couple of dollars. Yes, and whereas before you would have to a lot of money on to do the same thing, and this is great for that person,
for sure.
For the finance people or the budget owners, that it's arguable, right?
It's not as predictable anymore.
And financial people like predictability.
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's important. It's really important to keep your cash flow and your everything needs to be healthy. And in some places you have real fiduciary responsibility. So if you declare that you had a cost but you cannot explain that, or it's wrong, you might go to jail. So some accountants, some places in some regulated industries, they suffer with that too, right?
Yeah.
So there is extremes. I'm not saying this is common, but there are.
Yeah.
And it's important to be able to track that.
Exactly.
And there is a whole mentality shift on this.
Yeah. And I mean, if you told me this, so I'm gonna repeat what you said. You said, if you ask an engineer how much the cloud is basically spending, they usually don't know, right? They can look at some numbers, but if you say, is it optimized, right? Can we cut some costs here? Yeah, they usually have no clue where to start. Yeah,
they are not. Thankfully, this mentality is slowly changing.
Yeah,
but normally you get they don't know. But it's not that they don't care. They're just not focused on that. They are focused on making things work or keeping them running.
Yeah,
right. So with the increasing adoption of cloud, people had to read it like. Probably the Ball.com people said they had to relearn how to do things, right? It wasn't the same. It's not about just where, in terms of infrastructure, they're going to run. It's not one-to-one, but how they do it, going cloud native, right?
Yeah.
So you have to recycle your knowledge, and you have to understand that you need to do things differently. And the first focus of that was probably how to run. Yeah, how to walk or run things in the cloud. And once you got that figured out, the second major point, which should have been the first, but was probably the second if we look historically how this happened, was security. How do we make this secure? Because then everything is in the cloud. In theory, it's accessible, right, from anywhere. So you need to protect that to make sure that only who you want to access your information, your data, or your applications can do it.
Yeah.
And then it seems, okay, now we figured that out. We know how to do things in the cloud.
Yeah.
Let's use cloud. And then everybody started to use cloud. And then what happened is that all of a sudden, cloud bills started to go up and up and up and up.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And then what's going on is that cloud adoption is increasing. And whereas, okay, you don't have to pay or buy all those equipments we were talking about anymore, and going through layers of approvals and asking permissions and making business cases and following existing processes, right, that everybody knows how to do.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you gave all this workforce with access to the cloud, right? So all your engineers, developers, architects, everybody that has a login that can go to a cloud account, a subscription, or a project, depending on the cloud provider, they basically got an unlimited credit card where they can only buy services from that cloud provider.
Yeah.
But they got an unlimited credit card. And nobody's checking what they're doing.
Exactly.
Theory, right? Not even them.
Yeah.
So some people have this naturally, right? This I cannot. I need to be responsible. I cannot do it.
I can't spend it.
But most people are not. They're not concerned, or that they don't care.
Yeah.
It's just, as I said, they are not focused on this. They are trying to figure out, how do I do this? How do I make this better? Or how I just don't mess it up.
Yeah.
Right? It was a shift. But once you start doing things like this, you just continue.
Yeah. I mean, it's always been the driver of kind of an engineer. Let's take a product team, for example. Their drive is delivering value for the end customer, right? First, it was probably on-premise with something. Now it moved to the cloud. And as you mentioned, you first try and make it happen. And you can probably do that. Then the next step is bringing it to the customer, right? And that brings different questions with it. Security is one of them. And then when you actually have that, you're like, okay, we can use this. This is the cycle, right?
Exactly.
Except you don't really think about, right, the value always has a cost. And the cost aspect is changing now.
Yeah.
But who then is kind of, I mean, I kind of can figure out who's responsible. It's more of an overarching thing. But who should be responsible, I guess?
So it depends on your organization, right?
Yeah.
But normally when we talk about financial management, you would be looking towards the CFO office and then coming down that stream. And maybe from the CIO, right, running the technology side of a company and thinking of how did we get here, right? How did we get from experimenting the cloud to running most of our production environments in the cloud?
Yeah.
And was it planned? A lot of times it was not.
Yeah, it snowballs.
It happened organically, right? One team started, it was a success, and then another one, and then another one. And then came time for renewing some hardware contract. And they say, I'm not going to need this anymore. I'm running the cloud. Now, think of how many cases happened because this was sort of organic, that people did move to the cloud, and procurement departments were not really in that loop, right? So procurement gets in between the chairs here, whereas they were super important, making negotiating all these contracts, making sure that the company is not being abused, and so on. They don't have even a role anymore. Nobody needs to go through procurement. They are not usually in the loop.
It's not a requirement anymore.
Yeah, but then all they know sometimes is that a contract is ending, and they're going to renew that contract. Nobody's going to use that anymore.
Yeah.
But the contract in Capex is, okay, you buy it, it stays there for a few years.
Yeah.
And then, so how many of those happened because there wasn't a planned migration to the cloud or a planned cloud adoption? And this is something that, as a consultant, I can see a lot that, there are places that just don't look from it in a holistic way. They're just concerned of one aspect. And if you bring FinOps into the picture, you are just trying to make sure that you don't forget one very important aspect of this. And FinOps, as it runs through, it gets from this financial aspect, right, the cost of things, but it also goes to the operation side. So eventually you move from determining, are we sure that this is a good use case, that we move into the cloud, we're going to make things are going to be better for us and maybe more cost efficient. There is this myth or that if you move to the cloud, everything will be cheaper. It might not be.
Yeah, exactly. Depends on how you use it.
How you use it, right? And if you get there, and if you really look at this aspect, once you're running there, you continuously optimize, right? So you it's a never-ending thing, and you, from a FinOps perspective, you can also challenge and work with your engineering teams and developing teams to get them to, hey, could we do this now work and deliver value to the customers and make it cheaper? Or make it more efficient? So it's not about making cheaper for the sake of money. It's making more efficient. It's making sure that you are extracting all what you can and being smart on a design level, on architectural level. So this is what I think is very interesting. It overarches everything, almost the full operating model, if you would, from one optic.
I get why companies might be struggling with this, right? If they're already running somewhere on premise, as you mentioned, kind of big bang shift to the cloud is not going to be as cost effective, right? Because they already invested in all this hardware. So then it needs to be a gradual migration. But then which parts do you migrate? How do you phase that out?
So cloud providers, the hyperscalers, they normally have programs to incentivize customers to migrate to the cloud.
Yeah.
And they usually ask to give incentives. They ask in return that you plan it, right? So they don't require you to move, make a big bang move.
Yeah.
They ask you build a business case,
yeah,
and then go move to the cloud, get executive sponsors within the company to make it happen.
Yeah.
And then build a plan. How do you gonna make the shift? And once there, how are you gonna transform that, right? So you can start with a simple lift and shift. So run exactly what you're running here, there, just there.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a virtualized environment, data center. If you want to call it cloud, that it's oversimplifying definitely, but you can start there. And then you can, okay, now let's learn and let's go native. Let's refactor our applications. Let's actually tear everything down, and build a brand new one.
Yeah.
And this is how you start leveraging that. And then once you start, again, making it happen, and you make sure that it works, you make sure that it's delivering some value to your end customers, and then what can we do better here?
Yeah. I get that. Kind of moving back to FinOps as kind of a knowledge domain, right? Say we have the same exact scenario in a product team that you have different competencies, right? Some people are a bit more aware of security aspects that need to be applied when you're developing a product. Some people are a bit more aware of the operational kind of thing, right? The DevOps mindset about visibility and robustness and all that. Do you think FinOps is also kind of a knowledge domain that should be within a team?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
I think it's going to be just as DevOps, started to bring this programming and development knowledge together with operations knowledge, right? So there is no more, when I tested this, the code on my virtualized environment on my machine, it worked out. Yeah. It's not working on production. It's the networking guy's fault.
Yeah,
it's not mine. It's operations, not me. So I think the same way this converged, and it's almost expected that somebody working with cloud can have some. It's a T-shaped profession, right? And knows a bit of both. I believe that this is going to be another expectation. Maybe not yet, but it's going to come. Nobody's going to ask people to be FinOps specialists, but they will ask people to have, from at least an architectural point of view, the notion of cost efficiency within their workloads, applications, code, and this will be expected. And for now, I think this role is being, in many cases, centralized, either in one person for a whole enterprise-level organization. Sometimes it's a small team, and they go and as a task force, right? They identify where is the best place we can help with our knowledge, and they go to that team, to that unit, that department, whatever it is, and they work together. And if they do a good job, if they can scale their team on these collaborations, these interactions, they are going to pass some knowledge to that department they are working with, the team they are working with, passing on, okay, this is a best practice, that this is how we make sure that you can reserve some time on your sprint planning, right? To make, what can we improve from a cost efficiency perspective? And how they scale this, even in a small team, is by enabling visibility. It all starts there. So you mentioned this earlier. So usually they don't know that this is costing, right? And that's true. And this is where it starts, in my opinion. So it's enabling visibility. And that will make people, I didn't know that. We humans are funny creatures, right? Once you have that knowledge and once you see that this is happening, you somehow feel responsible, right? If you see something that, this is not going good, right? You see a trend. It's ever more expensive and to deliver the same thing.
Yeah.
So you say, I'm not being really efficient here.
Yeah.
And then you start doing something to make it better. So the motto I preach normally is awareness drives accountability, which in turn demands awareness.
Yeah.
Because you know, and then you're going to do something about it. And if you feel accountable about it, you want to know, again, how am I doing, right? And then that cycle goes on. And this is really positive for companies, right? For organizations leveraging cloud.
Yeah, I really like that model, right? And I really like that the role of FinOps there is to kind of kickstart that awareness.
Exactly.
Right? If people are not aware, how are you going to find it? You're going to find it somewhere in a blog post, but is it applicable and is it reliable? All stuff like that. But if it's within your organization, right, within your environment, it's going to be in the back of your mind. If you look at something and be like, oh, maybe we should use this, or does it need to be real time when the requirement is real time? Is it actually real time, or is near real time enough, right? Because that can be a big difference.
So near real time is enough because even when you take any sort of monitoring in the cloud, and we can see when something stops working, right? You know it stops immediately. Or that can be real time. With the billing side of cloud there is a certain lag, and it depends a bit on what type of service you're using within the cloud. Some services go as far as billing on the millisecond, which is mind-boggling, right? And some services go to the hour. So you can have anything in between. You can have a second, you can have a minute, or intervals of 10 minutes, or intervals of 10 seconds sometimes. It really depends, and there are so many ways. So the information will always come with a lag. But this is fine, as long as you get that information out there and you make people aware of it. You can expect a reaction.
Exactly.
Right? And if you don't make it visible, don't expect a reaction. People might not even know it's happening, right? And it's, as I said, it's not about care. It's about focus and knowledge. So if I don't know, what would I do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Someone needs to kind of be a fire starter in that way. But if we're looking at your past, you've probably been part of a task force, or you've seen kind of where the cost can be reduced the most within a few different organizations. What's usually kind of the trend? Where can people really be more efficient usually from what you've seen? And also, how much can you optimize?
Okay. So let me break this down. The first, yes, I have been in a lot of optimization projects or task forces, and what I identify is what needs to be optimized is the visibility aspect, right? Make sure that the information is there, and transparency, right? If you don't get transparency through, it's going to be hard to get people involved. And you can do a lot from a centralized point of view, but you cannot do everything. With that said, when I look into optimization of services, there are normally 3 big components that can be optimized. And those would be compute, and then storage, and then networking.
Okay.
So
in that order?
Yes. Okay. I would maybe it depends on the use case, of course, a lot. But if I have to generalize, yes.
Okay.
So compute is the most sought after service in the cloud. So everything that we do demands compute power, and there is a lot of compute power available in the cloud, and there is a lot of flavors, and there is a lot of ways of consuming that, and this is overwhelming. So people tend to choose something and they stick to that. And the pace of innovation in the cloud is so big. And there is always something coming up. And even if you're doing something that is really efficient now, it might not be a month from now.
Yeah.
And it's important to keep an eye on that. Aside of making sure that you are using it properly. So all three components, in the cloud have one single aspect in terms of optimization, which is one of the fundamental premises of cloud computing, which is elasticity.
Yep.
So you pay for what you need, to use, and when you use it instead of all the time. But when you use it is not, I'm actively using my machine.
Yeah.
It's more when you run it, right? You pay for that as long as it runs.
Yeah.
You might not be using it, but you're still paying for that.
Yeah, because it runs in the background.
Yeah, it's running.
Yeah.
The fact that you're not doing anything with it doesn't matter. You're running it.
Yeah.
It's not available for somebody else, any other customer of that cloud provider to use it.
Yeah.
You're running it. You're paying for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody's running it. It's okay. It's the cloud provider problem. But if it's not available to somebody to use because you're running, so you pay for what we use. When you use it, it's more like when you run it. And then you have to be sure that you're using it every time for every single moment that it is running.
Yeah.
Yes. And this concept of elasticity is not always fully leveraged in the cloud. And this is one component that goes across, because there's no better way to optimize than from a cost perspective than not using.
Yeah.
Right. So you can right size things. You can make things. Okay, I have this machine, and I could use that
smaller version,
right? Yeah. A smaller version of that. It would be enough. The same amount of water would fit in that glass.
Yeah.
And I'm still good, right?
Yeah.
So this would be right sizing, and this also moves a lot. But let's say there's no water at all. I don't need this.
You don't need the glass. Yeah.
So in the past, I bought this glass, so it doesn't matter. I'm not using it. I already paid for that.
Yeah.
Now in the cloud, you can just say, okay, I don't need it. Somebody else use it. Yeah. COVID aside.
But you do have to. But you do have to be conscious of that, right? If you're still running it, even though you're not using it, you're going to pay for it.
So and it's about not only that. It's also about, do I know that I'm not making the best out of this specific resource here, right? Do I have the tools to monitor not only how am I doing in terms of cost, how am I doing in terms of performance as well, right? And in storage, it's funny. We don't see so abstracted for us right now. In the past, you would have huge sane environments, right?
Yep.
Where you would store, you have the units there, whatever you use, hard disks or any sort of device to store. Yeah, flash ones, doesn't matter. The point is, there was something there. At some point, this would be fully consumed, and then you would have to buy another one. Right, or clean up, or make backups. Or nowadays, this is so abstracted. It seems we have virtually unlimited.
Yeah, feels
space,
like it. Yeah,
right. There is a cost for that. So, if you don't need that information anymore, you need to make sure that this gets deleted.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna pay for it forever. I probably mean this forever because I don't think cloud is going anywhere any soon. So think of a file, an object, and you put it in the cloud and you store it. It's a 1 megabyte.
Yeah.
And you use this once, you don't need it anymore. You could delete that. But it's one file. It's there.
That's how it starts.
Think of millions, billions of objects, right? And they are still there, available for you. One API call away. Yeah. But nobody will ever make that API call.
Yeah.
And it will stay there, and it will cost you every single month. Single month. And this is how things get done. And you have tools and practices to make sure that this does not happen.
Yeah.
And you create lifecycle management, right?
Yeah.
And then you make sure that, okay, I need this for 1 month, and then I gotta take new pictures of the same product.
Yeah.
And then I don't need these pictures anymore. So you move them to an archive, which is gonna be cheaper. And you can say after a year, if I don't retrieve that from the archive, just permanently delete that.
Yeah.
And that's it. And the same for full volume snapshots or things like that. So there is a lot of unused things in the cloud. And when you talk about storage, so when you talk about compute, it's more about the elasticity and the right sizing.
Yeah.
When you talk about storage, it's about unused and non-managed information. So for how long it stays there available, fully available, on a millisecond, bing, it's there. And you can have in a cheaper storage category that will take 1 second to retrieve that same object, and it's going to be less than half the price.
Yeah, it really reminds me of kind of a real life example of someone that probably has too much stuff in their house, right? At some point it's not going to fit. Are you going to pay for a bigger house? Probably not. You're going to throw some stuff away.
Exactly. Great analogy. Yeah, it is. And it's also both things kind of speak to what we have on the networking part, because this is a cost that was sort of fixed, in the past. When you think about all the transfers that happen in an IT environment in the past, you would have your on-prem data center, right, with all your disks there, your SAN environment, your networking devices, your computers, the servers, or the edge computers, right, the users' notebooks and everything. Yeah. And there is information trafficking all the time. And everything running there, it's for free, right? Yeah. And if you need to send an email, well, you're already paying a fixed bill to your telecommunications provider to have DSL or fiber sort of connection to your company. And okay, this is paid. It's going to traffic through the internet, but the price is paid, right? Yeah. And in the cloud, that's not. And you pay for everything that is trafficking. Yeah, especially if it traverses the internet. So it moves. So within your environment, that's going to be fine. And normally, if you breach some sort of boundary, so regional, or if it really goes out to the internet, then you're going to start paying. Yeah. And this is something people were not used to, and they don't even pay attention to that. But there is a big component of the cost of the cloud there. So
I can imagine that. But when you tie all those things together, right, within an organization, some aspects are going to go wrong, some aspects are going to go right. On average, what would you say the cost reduction has been for the organizations you've been involved in?
My experience is that you can always find between 25-30% optimizations in the cost.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And if you look at the size of this market, I just saw IDC, I think in September, mentioned that we would get to $1.3 trillion in cloud by 2025. Yeah. And currently, Gartner says 408 billion. Yeah, this is the revenue of cloud for this year. Yeah. So
that's a lot of money.
30% of optimization there. Yeah. And then, there is a big market and a big need for this.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it's not going to come out of the box, right? Someone needs to really bring that awareness within either an organization and definitely within the teams that are using it.
Exactly.
Because right now, if everyone had a credit card and you're a company owner, you're not going to feel comfortable. Yeah. But that is how it is in the cloud, kind of.
It is. Take it to yourself, right? Take it to your home. You leave your home to come to work, and you turn off the lights. Yeah. You leave your work and you don't need that resource running in the cloud anymore. Turn it off, and then you're going to stop paying for that. Take ownership, right? Yeah. Be that person and try to learn and be informed about that, just the same way you had to learn new things when you start working in the cloud, right? Yeah. And you try to challenge yourself. If it's not about saving money for the company, it's not about saving money for the company. It's about extracting value from the cloud and delivering that value somewhere, right? Find what makes you tick. It's about sustainability. So if you're not using a resource running in the cloud provider data center, something's not being used, and they're probably going to shut that down.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a less carbon footprint.
Exactly.
So find something that motivates you to think of that, and apply it to your day-to-day. It starts small, and it doesn't need to be a big thing. You have a team doing that from a central place, and then you do your little part of it. Yeah,
exactly.
Just make sure that you have the visibility. Ask that from your company if you don't have it, and start making small changes. Right?
Yeah, I love hearing that, because those small changes are going to add up, right? And those are really going to make the difference.
In the same way, the files would stack up and become meaningful. Yeah, and throughout time, really hurt financials.
Yeah.
Small changes will compound as well.
Exactly.
And they will bring big positive impact. And I think that's all technology is about, right?
Yeah,
enabling
for sure.
that.
Yeah, awesome. I really like kind of hearing about why you're passionate about FinOps in the first place, and kind of going into what it is and what does it mean exactly, and how our organization's struggling with this, and how is it evolving, down to where can you optimize, right? The three biggest costs in compute, storage, and network. And then also, when you've actually optimized, right, that 30 to 25%, that's a big slice of money.
Yeah, think of how much you're doing every month.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the visibility, ask for that. You should get it. And then think there is a business case probably for you to start investing on this, to have somebody to get specialized in this, and to get your teams to spend some time doing that. So go for it and
just start small. Exactly. Cool. I want to thank you for coming on, Michel.
Thank you for the opportunity. I love talking about this.
I really feel that, man. I learned a lot, which is awesome.
That's great. Pleasure to be here, and let's keep on going.
For sure. Michel Zitman, everyone.
Thank you.
From your sponsors, Zebia, creating digital leaders.